Well, it's a critical time for the Indian economy. The long-term prospects, many believe, are optimistic, but demonetisation and the introduction of GST have thrown things a bit off track, which is why the growth for the last quarter slowed down to 6.1% from 7% in the previous quarter, which is also why manufacturing is down to a 9-year low and why across 8 core sectors there has been a slowdown as well. Joining us tonight to make sense of all of this is Dr. Kaushik Basu, former Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India and former Chief Economist at the World Bank. Dr. Basu, great to have you here in India and in Delhi at this time. Just to get an overall sense from you first, how are we doing economically?
Economically, we are doing reasonably well, but beyond that, let me explain. The medium to the long run prospects are actually very good. And you're seeing this in some statements being made even internationally, that India is on a very good wicket. We want to bring our foreign direct investment into India. That's the medium to long term prospects. The short run, India is not doing well. Growth is down to 6.1%, whereas growth should have been higher. And I do believe that another year maybe, we are going to grapple with these short-term problems. Part of it is a consequence of the demonetisation that we can come back to later. Part of it is GST. GST, let me immediately say, I think it's a very good move. It's a move that we have to stand behind. There will be the teething trouble, but it could deliver just huge benefits. But yes, all this coming together is causing a slowdown, which is a bit unfortunate, even if the long-run prospects are good, because oil prices are down. China is ceding space for the lower wage manufacturing sector. India ought to be rushing into the space very, very quickly, which is not happening. But again, despite that, the medium term is looking good, the long term is looking good.
You've actually said that demonetisation was a very big mistake. Can you elaborate on that? Why do you think so?
Yes, demonetisation was a big mistake, just as GST, despite the teething troubles, is a very good move. Demonetization's sort of main targets, there are 2 of them, fake Indian currency notes and black money. Demonetization is too big a shock to the market economy. 86% of the currency in circulation gets this shock. To give that shock to cure these 2 problems, one of which it could not cure, it's not possible. Fake Indian currency notes, you can't cure. You can change it and make it white, but that does nothing. The black money through this, yes, you will get at small traders some amount of cash that is stashed away. But the big amount is really kept abroad, already gone abroad, it's into real estate, you will not get at that. So the 2 big targets through demonetization, you will achieve very little. The third one, which is digital currency going off from cash, that you don't do by shocking again the market economy. That will have to be a series of small steps. It's a good target to have. But even with fully developed countries still using cash, India cannot make that leapfrogging step and go into a cashless economy. That will have to be a slow step. So overall, demonetization, I think, was an unfortunate move. Other countries have made such mistakes and recovered and done well. And South Korea in the 70s made a couple of big mistakes, changed course and did well. That's the spirit in which we have to take this.
So a couple of questions here. As you say, you still believe demonetization was a big mistake. But look at what happened after that, politically. You had the UP election and you had a massive victory for Mr. Modi and the BJP there. If demonetization was so bad, which is what the BJP often, this is the logic they throw up, then why did people vote for them in such big numbers? Because it has affected everyone's lives in some way or the other.
It was a politically popular move, undoubtedly so. And of course the UP elections, but even I would be talking, stopping people and talking in the streets, all were very, very positive. But you know, when it comes to a technical decision, it cannot be a majority popularity being used to judge whether it was a good decision or not. And we have seen mistakes like that in other countries. I mean, you make a big move which gives you a short-term popularity boost, but then the negative effect comes over time. So demonetization, yes, on majority vote, it would probably, if you did it by referendum, it would win. But I feel
as a principle,
it would win as a principle. Its implementation, people would worry, people would suffer, and in the long run, it would do very badly. So no, it's a technical matter. It is not something that you decide. And you know, I may quote the Prime Minister over here talking in terms of the importance of Tarka Shastra, where you debate and discourse and reach a professional decision. That's the way this kind of a thing should have been done. It has to be confidential, but a small group, the best of minds ought to have brought in. It would have been implemented and done much better.
Which then brings me to the role of the RBI. It's actually rather odd that even now we don't know how much money came back into the system. I mean, we have this strange situation where the RBI was telling us how much money was coming back till about the middle of December, I think. And then it just mysteriously stopped. And the finance minister said recently that the notes are still being counted. What do you think of that?
But this I would only expect, because the black money in the system that you're catching by this is going to be negligible. And I think the final count show that it's been negligible. So if the black money being netted through this is negligible, fake Indian currency notes through this, you've changed them into real currency notes, done nothing else, then it's simply, the data will then show what I'm claiming.
So then don't give out the data?
Well, that's what, I don't know if that is what is being done or there is some glitch in it, but I believe it is showing what I am arguing, that on the black money front, it has delivered very little.
On the demonetization issue again, on demonetization, you just said you believe that the impact will be felt over the next year or so. Are you saying that actually people will feel the worst of it over the next year?
No, maybe not the worst of it, but the growth slowdown, given the oil price and the general global situation with other countries ceding space to India, India could have gone up to 8% growth even now. So I feel that slowdown is going to persist for some more time. The informal sector, which has taken a big hit, the smaller traders, businesses have taken a big hit. That is not yet showing up on our data, because the survey which takes place in India every 5 years, the big survey, that's occurring now. So you will get this data much later. But that segment is going to continue to feel the pinch. I don't think there's going to be much more deterioration, but a slowdown in the growth is going to persist. And the GST is also feeding into that a little bit, though that's a pain for me. It's a worthwhile pain. You have to take it on for a few months, the GST pain, because the benefits will be very large.
How do you, sort of square off all the numbers that we're looking at? We just talked about the low growth in the last quarter. We've had the 8 core industries growing at just 0.4%, which was government data released last week, as opposed to 4.1% in May. You have the Nikkei report that's talked about manufacturing at a 9-year low. But then you have the Sensex, which hit a new high. And you have, like you said, long-term forecasts of a good economic outlook. How do we square off all these figures and what this data is saying?
With the Sensex, it's not too much of a surprise. Sensex reacts to a couple of things. It's big businesses, people in finance, and occasionally when the bottom end, the poor, the informal sector is taking a hit, the Sensex can do well, and for right reasons. It's not really an inconsistency in the data. The other things, manufacturing slowdown, core industry slowdown, purchasing managers index for services sector dipping. These things I think will show up on data. So on data in India, I still continue to feel that it is all being done correctly, each one of them. The consistency problem is going to be sorted out over time, because I feel the GDP number is going to take a small dip once more when these numbers come to fruition. But I don't think that we should cease to trust the data, as some people are saying. The Indian data is collected through a very transparent process, and I feel the data is something that you have to treat as a fair data that is coming out.
It's important that you say that, because there have been some economists who have even questioned the way the GDP has been calculated. They have raised this question of whether it is being sort of conveniently manipulated to be more positive than it is. And you're saying trust it. It's not that easy to do that.
That's what I do believe. That there are some conceptual difficulties. The corporate sector's value being added is very difficult to calculate. The government made some changes in the way this is computed. But that bit I don't think is deliberate. So the data, I would say, trust it, and things can go wrong in the future, but that has not happened. And I do believe that the reason for trusting is, my expectation is GDP's growth is going to go down a little bit more before it picks up.
On GST, you've of course been very clear that you're all for it. Some of the criticism, though, centered around the different slabs. What are your thoughts on that? Has it just created some confusion, or will that also sort of stabilize?
It has created some confusion. It's not an ideal GST that has been implemented. But getting GST through, and I know a little bit of this because I've worked in government during that period, there are just so many political interests that you're battling, in the end you give in to some of them and it becomes a bit of a hodgepodge. That is what has happened. But you see, on the whole, the main benefit of GST is it gives transparency to accounts of different firms. It comes into visibility. Number two, it cuts down on transactions cost, and I'll give you one number which is World Bank data. Historically, when Indian trucks would go from one city to another city, it would spend 60% of the time stationary at checkposts, clearing various kinds of octroys and all. These things can be extremely costly for businesses. GST is going to clear these things up. So on GST, despite these initial teething troubles, I'm very, very positive that actually there will be large benefits out of it.
You also spoke in Mumbai just a few days ago about the social damage that is being caused by lynchings, which you pointed out could have a bigger impact on the economy than even policy decisions. Can you elaborate on that? How much has this disturbed you, the kind of headlines that have been coming out of here?
The news does disturb me. I mean, sitting abroad, the news disturbs me also because even the international news is picking this up disproportionately, what's happening. And here I feel it is really important for the top leadership to give out the message much more clearly that this is something, this is not the way we want India to go. I mean, the fact that we are proud of our heritage does not mean that we do not want to go into a modern society and a modern economy, and the two are completely compatible. Here, I do believe that it is in the interest of our leaders to give a stronger message. There is an occasional message which is important, but it has to be given more strongly, because in the long run, if there is social damage, the cohesiveness of Indian society gets damaged, that is going to have a fallback on our growth figures, which will be much more difficult to handle than an economic intervention goes wrong. 1 or 2 years, you correct it. A social damage can take very long to correct.
You've also spoken about the need to have open debate and discussion on issues that face the country. Do you feel, in a sense, that that space has shrunk in India to be able to have a healthy debate and to be able to agree to disagree civilly?
I do believe that there is that, and there was recently my PhD advisor Amartya Sen was in the news, some censorship being brought into what he has said. And you know, I believe it is very important for India should be a confident country that can tolerate discourse and dissent. And on this, the statement made by the Prime Minister recently, citing our own tradition, which actually Amartya Sen has also done. This is the Indian tradition, argumentation, tarka. I feel we have to once again energize that, and we should be a confident enough nation that there will be some disagreements, some agreements. Through that, we take the right decisions and move ahead.
You're on that film with Amartya Sen.
I am on that film.
And we had Amartya Sen on the program on the day all of this happened. I mean, what do you make of a controversy like that? Does it make you laugh, or does it just make you angry when you see that a film is going to have bleeps, you know, for the most absurd things like Hindutva and cow, you know, Amartya Sen can't say that. You're on that same film.
Yes,
what did you think when that controversy broke
I think it's very, very unfortunate, because this was an innocuous thing, Amartya Sen talking clearly, and it is a voice that people all over like to listen to him. And I'm not for a moment saying you agree with everything Amartya Sen said. You should not do that with anyone just because that person is that person. You can disagree, but you want to hear out this person. And in fact, if anything, this gave a sort of salience to the documentary of a kind that it did not have through this. So it was an unfortunate action, not the kind of action that you want India to take.
Institutionally as well, and since you live in the United States, what do you see, for instance, on the role of the media, what do you see is the difference between the Indian media and the American media? Today you have a US president who is in a constant battle with the US press, and the US press doesn't hesitate to fact check him, to even call him a liar if he does that. Do you think institutionally their media is far stronger than perhaps we are? What do you think?
Probably is, and that is indeed something very impressive. And I feel in the long run, that's the strength of the American economy as well. Because things are being checked in public space. Things are being debated and discussed in public space in a way that doesn't happen in India. Some Indian television channels, I have to say, I've been watching of late. It's just screaming at a level. The only saving grace is you can't hear what they are saying because there's so much screaming that is going on. But you do want quiet discourse, people to sit down and put their arguments forward. You agree or disagree. It's too little of that on Indian television. Really, and we are an intelligent country. We should participate in that kind of discourse that you get in countries which are making good policies.
And not be afraid to question the
Not
establishment.
be afraid
and just
to
do our
question,
jobs.
and in fact the establishment should also be proud that there are people who are questioning. You come back and you give your response to that, but you want that space.
Well, Dr. Kaushik Basu, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming in on the program today.
Thank you very much.
And that's it on the show tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.